through a laundry list of just reminders. The holiday program, we already talked about that, is on December 1st, and that is Thursday from 6:30 to 8. That is also the night of a normally scheduled Parents Association meeting, which we are now moving to December 8th, the following Thursday. The first awards assembly will be on the 22nd of November. It's a Tuesday right before Thanksgiving. And we will have, I believe it's grades 5 through 8 in the afternoon and K through 4 in the morning. Let's see. We have one assembly coming up on the 29th. It's titled Hobie Ford's Goldenrod Puppets Animalia. And it's supposed to be a bunch of puppets that are in the shape of animals, supposed to be very creative, very neat. This is all funded through the Arts and Education Program. It's a grant that BOCES administers for all the local districts. And that's for grades K through 4. The assemblies finally were able to hook up with the Cerebral Palsy Association, and January 13th we will have both Kids on the Block program and Making Friends program for our primary students. I think I reported earlier that we had the homework excellence trip to Danny King in the basement. I think we took around 43 students. It was a neat experience. It was a little quirky at first, and the message got pretty heavy by the end. But the students seemed to enjoy it. I think they enjoyed McDonald's more, but we'll go there, of course. I reported earlier that we had, in the previous meeting, that we were going out soliciting supplemental education service providers. The emails went out, letters went out to all 76 providers. The deadline was Friday. As of Friday, we had 10 providers respond. I had one more today. Legally, I don't think I would want to try not to incorporate that one. We are working on getting a template for contracts to then send out to these providers. There are some issues that I'm trying to work through. One of the requirements in the contract indicates that the people that oversee this tutoring program, that the person who oversees it has to be a New York State certified teacher. It also stipulates that anyone who's in direct contact providing service with a student has to go through the New York State Education Department background check. One company wants to use FBI background checks. When I spoke with the person in charge at State Ed, he was questioning why I was questioning. He thought an FBI background check should be adequate. And I indicated that's not what the contract that he puts out said it had to be. So there's a little bit of a back and forth. I think we're going to go with the state ed requirement that says they have to be New York State background check. I'm very, very nervous being upfront with this, and I told Sue this. I'm very nervous putting our kids with almost all of these being online providers, where it's a tutor interacting online with a child here. I'm very nervous about this situation, and if I get my hand slapped because I've been too stringent, I'll still sleep at night. I'd much rather have the New York State background check and that they've gone through the $99 fingerprinting fee and that we know exactly who they are. Comments made back to me, well, if the company's out of Maryland, which one of them is, how are they ever going to get the results? And my answer was, not really my problem. I've got to look at. We do have one, we actually have two local groups. St. Lawrence BOCES is one that is willing to offer the supplemental ed service, and we actually have a company out of Albany as well. And she's willing to come up here. She doesn't have tutors, she doesn't do it online. She would actually look at staffing from within and hire our staff on my recommendation. They'd become her employees after school. So I think we have some really unique opportunities here.
So only some of the respondents offer the online, or?
Almost all of them are online. In fact, I haven't checked this 11th one out that just came, but out of the previous 10, even the BOCES one is really online. The only one that's not online is this woman who's out of the Albany area. Yeah. And that was the other thing that kept coming up. Well, can they use your computers? Well, are you going to staff it? Because I don't have money to staff someone to monitor our computers. They would, again, some of them are more than willing to hire somebody from our district to monitor the students' district computers. So we have a lot of work to do in the next couple of weeks.
Did the state
they offer plenty of guidance. But some of it, truthfully, a lot of it's extremely conflicting. And that, I think that's been my biggest frustration. And Mandy heard it the first day when I listened to the entire webinar. Today I got extremely frustrated when the gentleman said, who's in charge of this? I'm not an expert, I don't know what you want from me.
You said that to you?
Yes. So, and again,
That was state
Provider, or was that state ed?
I'm sorry?
Was that one of the providers, or was that state ed that we did?
That was the man in state ed who's in charge of supplemental education service, and he's the one who led the entire webinar.
So who was the expert?
I guess we're all learning as we go along. And to their credit, I have to say, unfortunately, state ed is inundated. You know, when you look at the data, they've gone from 45 schools that are in this year one to over 400. And again, they're predicting doubling that for next year.
Is there any other local within our BOCES district schools that are having to do this?
Again, well, Messina and Ogdensburg are so far down into the process, I don't know that they're going to see light anytime soon. But in terms of being new at this right now, I believe there are 7 of us schools that are identified. A couple, though, are, at least one I know is identified for the graduation rate, which I don't know if that puts them in this whole category of providing supplemental ed services. I believe it does, but I'm not sure. So yes, there are other schools. In fact, I spoke with Northern Norfolk today, and Sue's going to help me beg more and steal some favors to try to get more information. Part of the problem is that, and it's not a problem, but the dilemma that we face is we do our title in-house. I coordinate, I write the grant, you know, Sue did it before me, whereas some of the other districts contract with BOCES to do the title. So a lot of this other work that I'm trying to do now is being coordinated by one person. However, there's also another grant, because we are on the list. We have a grant that's worth around $27,000 to $28,000. The application is due on the 12th. There are 4 things I can spend the money on, except items number 2 and 3 don't count because it's only our first year. The first item is our school quality review, which isn't costing us anything. Jerry Swalnick was already here. He's helping us through the process at 0 cost. The 4th item, I spoke with the individual at BOCES. She gave me some ideas. We thought we could do it, and I said, I don't know. I just spoke with folks at Albany. They're not sure if they're going to let us. She thought that was crazy. She called down, got the exact same answer I did. They're not sure if they're going to let us spend the money on those things we want to. Long and short of it, make something up on the grant, put something down, and if they don't approve it, they'll send it back to us, and we'll have to redo our budget to spend that money. We don't lose the money, I was told. I didn't get that in writing, but so a lot of things are in fire right now in terms of our whole status. Again, I'm trying to get that $27,000 so that we can spend it back. There may be a way to use some of that money to relieve the stress on the Title I funds and put that back in towards teacher salaries. I'm hoping that I can do some of that, manipulating the funds around while still offering extra services to our students.
Thanks for the update on the page on top of it.
I don't know if there's any on top, but
Well,
and somewhere in the pile.
That's high on our priority list.
yeah.
At the high school, we've been working on period attendance and working out the glitches that we have with web to school, and with the goal of having attendance reported on report cards by period. We kind of ran into some things today, so I don't know if for sure it'll be on the first 10-week report card, but definitely after that, by January, it would have period-by-period attendance, so that the attendance policy, parents, will be communicated to by class, because a student could be here every day and be leaving at 1 o'clock every afternoon, and then that 7th and 8th period are different than they are for the rest, so we're working on that. Mrs. Finnerty is taking charge of doing a service for us. Seaway Valley is wanting to do a St. Lawrence County assessment on alcohol and drug use at the grades 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know why 7th grade's not in there, but they aren't level, and it's gonna be a confidential survey, and it takes about 1 period to do. So letters were sent home to the parents, and it was a passive letter that if you don't want your child to participate, send it back, and that'll get taken care of this week at some point in social studies. All of our fall sports teams have wrapped up their seasons, and I would say that overall, the fall season has been pretty positive for our kids as far as outcomes and teams getting along, and just, you know, win-loss records are not always everything, but certainly some teams made some definite strides that have not in the past done as well as they've done this year, and some that used to be top have taken a little slide back. So it's been overall a good fall season for the sports. That banquet is November 16th. The seniors are doing the play Grits and Gravy, November 18th or 19th at 7 o'clock at night. And then the other thing, that the diplomas that we passed out, those are the 2 versions of the diplomas that are handed out, and we'll do a discussion when the time is right on that too, where we want to go with diplomas for the kids. And that's all I have.
Did you say the play was November 18th and 19th, or did you say 18th or 19th?
They're going to do it both. You can go to
Okay.
either one. You don't have to
I
do
thought you
both.
said or, I thought, I know it's usually 2, and I thought you said or.
I have a question on the sports schedules.
Uh,
Do we have any luck trying to find neutral sites for some of the longer games? I know we tried to, so we didn't have any luck trying to find.
The only team that we had discussed that would be a mutually agreed upon in Chateauguay, they refused, and we talked about this before, and basically Carl said, you know, we asked them to work in good faith with districts, and their comment basically to me was, all of their games, they're traveling an hour and a half, 2 hours, they would never have a home field advantage because of the grouping that they're in. So they were unwilling to make any compromise. However, they did, in the end, play on a Saturday.
Okay.
So that was at least a positive.
And,
And that game originally was changed because of something here. Our students wanted to play in a tournament, so it got put on a Wednesday night instead of a Friday night, which initially it was, you know, a Friday. So some of it they were working with us, but bottom line, they're not going to play at a neutral site.
so basketball, there's no problem.
Correct.
We're gonna try
What
to
we
get,
did talk about, I'm sorry, doing with modified is, we will not take modified out there at all. We'll just get them a local, because modified, they can pull any local team,
Okay.
and it doesn't count against or for them.
I believe Lori said too that JV games are starting at 5:30 instead of 6 o'clock in order to accommodate the longer distance. So by starting half hour earlier, they should get home at about the same time they got home last year.
For every game or just those games?
I thought she told me that across the board they were starting at 5:30.
so I was just gonna ask, are we gonna try to have the faraway games on Friday nights?
Again, that's what Lori has asked to do, or Saturday.
But it is the home field's choice, right?
Yes,
They get to pick.
they don't
So
have,
if they refuse, there's nothing we can do about
and if we choose to forfeit the game, then obviously we're not eligible to play in the playoffs.
it.
So that's the negative side.
The, I don't know, maybe Lori has to answer this question, but did the redistricting, the realigning section 10 have any impact, I think, on how we ultimately made out at the end of the year? Or do you think if there's any impact on that, or? Not that
As
super
far as who
important.
they played or
Just-
need for the sectionals,
Yeah.
I have no idea. I really doubt it.
I think it did for the teams that had the concern, Norfolk, that they were higher in their season than they were in previous years. But for us,
But for our, I don't think it made a difference on our boys because of who we played. In fact, we ended up playing Harrisville.
Wasn't a disadvantage then, as far as
not in that
quality
way
of
for us.
competition and everything?
A couple of things I have on Hot Topic. We got phone calls as to why at the Section 10 games were the athletic directors and people enforcing noisemakers, a bell in particular, and I shrunk this down so people could see it. At all Section 10 games and events, they have this blown up poster size, and they read it, and it states, Bells, noisemakers, and other distractions are prohibited. Players and coaches need to be able to hear each other, the refs, and should be able to concentrate on the play of the game. So it wasn't that our athletic director decided to go out and do it on our own. She was asked to enforce the rules as the person that was on duty at those games, which was Lori. That was her duty to do. So I know that there were several community people very upset and said this is as old as tradition, and it's not allowed.
Is that something new from section 10?
No. I know that last year it was enforced because a lot of people bring in the vuvuzelas, the soccer blowhorns, and were using them inside. So I was at the game last year when people had the air horns and they were squirted out of the gym in Albany. So it's not new, it's just, like I said, it's being enforced more perhaps. But I just wanted to make sure people realize, and this, it's right on the table when you pay, it's hanging up as you go in. I'm not saying people read those things, but it does come from section 10. So I just wanted to point that out. As far as the building use, I hated to even put it on the agenda again, but what has come up is that what Zumba is going to do is just rent the cafeteria at $20 an hour to pay a $5 an hour fee more, but then would not be charging out of district residents because on our facility use fee schedule, it doesn't say there's a charge for out of district residents. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. And then they would also be, rather than a $3 charge for extra hours, it would be a $5 charge. So I'm passing that on to the board because I'm not really sure how we're supposed to charge them, starting at what date, where, and when. Because each meeting we had, things kept changing. And now with that change, you can't go back and do it, but we just passed it on because when Angie and I sat to figure it, it was, we could pull something out of the air is what I thought. So I don't know if anybody had suggestions.
I think we have to go by our building fee schedule.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And whenever they start using it, that's, right. And if that's to their advantage, then that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't specify, extra for the out-of-towners, then that's what it is.
I'm also talking about we were in limbo for so long, because originally we went back to, we made it $15 and there was no additional fee, hour fee, if you remember. I think you had mentioned that 8 weeks ago. And then 6 weeks ago, we voted again and changed it again, so it's been very difficult to keep it up as to what's the
They never
wage.
had the people sign in the site,
They did
so
not.
there's not any, there's no record.
I heard they were given a sheet to use and did not use it, and didn't turn it in at the end of each month.
So when we enacted the one that we're using now, which, this is getting confusing a little bit.
Well, they just switched to the cafeteria.
But no, but when we enacted it, we hadn't really changed it, so we talked about changing it, we never really did, when we kind of adopted it.
Right, but they were not paying any fees at that point for out-of-district people,
Okay,
nor had they recorded them.
okay.
So it's hard to figure out what to charge or collect when we don't have all the data. And I'm just passing that on because everybody says, we don't want to talk about it again, we'd like it to be done, but we're
But
scared
you're
left
left
with
to
how
deal
to do
with
it.
Right.
So I'm not trying to just keep bringing it up, but
Actually, well, this is
Direction.
to do that, and make it easier as far as
it does from this point forward.
record keeping, yeah.
So,
It's hard to go back, I guess, at this point, to say what they may have done or may not have done.
I don't really know how we can without any kind of a sign-in sheet if they didn't. I know that you've asked them for it and they still haven't turned it in.
right. They didn't use it. I mean, we can go with what their guesstimate was, and I'll accept that if that's what you folks want to do. And we'll just start with cafeteria at this point forward.
I think that's what we have to do.
Makes sense.
Okay. Regional high school handout, I just want people to read that, look it over. If we want to have discussion later, we can. One of the things, and I wanted to point this out, obviously some of us are starting to work on budget and costs already. The newsletter, when we look at it in full for the year, costs us about $4,300. By the time we mail it, print it, have staff in working on it, doing everything that it takes.
How much?
About $4,300 for the mailings. Did we say 6 or 5? Not including the one for
Postage, right?
postage. Well, you're also at the paper, 7, so there's 7 that go out, and that's not for budget. So at one point, oh, that is budget, I'm sorry, okay, that is the one. But what we used to do, at one point, we had stopped sending them out, we were doing them on, if people wanted, sending them on emails, doing that type of thing. To me, that's an area, I have another compromise, I guess I'd like to present, and we can hand these around. A lot of districts do district calendars for the year, and what it has is all of their dates and everything put into one place. A lot of times our newsletter is redundant, because, like, and I'm picking on guidance just because she's still here, I hope not. I'm picking on guidance because they just want to keep giving the same dates. I mean, the SAT date is always going to be SAT date, but do we need that listed for 5 of the 6 newsletters? And a lot of the stuff, as I said, we're ending up with 40 pages, and we just keep getting more. And I'll hand these around. What we would basically do is do all the calendars, stuff. I mean, we have all the dates set before we leave here in June. We know when the board meetings are going to be. We know when the concerts are going to be. We have proposed sports agendas. You know, not to say those things don't change, but we would put this out, and then at report card time, do a newsletter. Ron would do one for the elementary. Michelle would do one for the high school. And you're talking 3 or 4 pages. And they would be put in the report cards, again, not mailed. So I'm just trying to look at things that are easier to cut and consider.
That's always
Like
right there.
that. And then it's always there, they have it, they don't have to go find their newsletter.
Often do we change information that,
Right.
you know, halfway through the year?
It changed, I mean, things change. We've had concerts change, we've had sports change. You know, I mean, things will inevitably change. But, you know, some of the things, we send out the menus in every newsletter. We said, well, then we send them home to every kid too. So there's so much, you know. We try, and I can't say it's done efficiently all the time. That was something.
That's one way to keep it,
Right.
kind of cost down.
Would the sports schedules all be in that?
It would be, because they are given a proposed schedule ahead of time. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean there will be
Subject to
changes.
rain or whatever?
Right. Or what happened is, like, we were scheduled to be in a tournament and play a game at the same time. Because when they set Section 10 schedule, they didn't know we were playing in a tournament. So they changed the soccer game, you know what I mean? To not play that night, to play the tournament.
But the same thing did happen with the newsletter.
Sure.
This is done 3 months for 3 months
Right.
or whatever.
So it's just something I wanted to show Kay, and I looked at it last year and then just got swept away with everything else, but I'd really like to try to push something more like that for next year.
Any relevant information that they wouldn't get that they're getting now, I mean,
I think it's one of those things you learn as you go
yeah.
and find out. I mean, that's why I had 2 different schools. I will talk to the schools and their secretaries and say, what have you learned? What have you changed? And we don't need to recreate the whole wheel if they've been doing it for several years and it's successful.
Well, I think it's valuable to look at things like this, it would help reduce some of our costs in other ways. And, you know, sometimes if you might be a little bit slower on getting information out, or fewer, but that's better than the alternative in some cases.
Do they know what percentage of people have computers in their home?
Well, Linda Alfred did a study, you know, and sent them a questionnaire. And again, it's always hard to know if people don't fill it out or if they didn't have it. But I think they got about 56% had access online or high speed, you know, to be able to make it useful or worthwhile. Now, I think that's changed as TDS, what, about a year and a half ago? Okay, would you say? Got high-speed services up here?
To more outlying areas, yes.
So, again,
Because at the college, everything is email, you know, this is it, this is their official correspondence is this, and everybody, you know, gets it bombarded on them all the time. But that's why I need to know the percentage of it.
right, and I think it's something we might need to do again, is to send to people.
It would be great
Because it
information to
changes.
see, because if 75 to 80% of people have access to it, that cuts a large number of papers that we're not using and costs that we're not generating for no reason.
I mean, the hard part is we're not trying to cut community members who don't have children here out of the picture when they do the newsletters. We can still put some like we do and did previously when we were emailing it. Some in the post office, some at the, you know, library, Pinoco. And then those people have availability. If they call, we can mail them one. But to try to cut some of the cost.
But
Yeah,
if you cut 75% of your $4,000, it's a considerable savings. That's, a lot of people walk in, look at it, and offset, and that's the end of it right there, so.
Especially if people don't have kids in school.
But if somebody called up and said, I want to be on the newsletter list, at least you'd have a fresh
Sure.
level to start from.
Right. And I mean, there are some people who want that, who want to see their grandchildren's neighbors, child that they are. And those are things that you don't want to cut them out again, but I think there would be other ways to do it.
That's something you put together right here at the school, it's nothing you have to order, right?
We haven't talked that far yet, you can do it both ways. Both those schools order theirs out. And we haven't done cost effective or any of those yet. I wanted to present it here before we jump to the next step.
Nice.
Great idea.
From a parent's perspective, it would be nice to hear you get their communication.
Right, easier than that.
Yeah. Should I finish my way together?
Yeah.
Well, it is, and Carol did point out if we had it printed at BOCES, we would get 8. Whereas what we're printing it and mailing out now, we're not going to get 8.
These are great ideas.
So, one of the things in my handout, it's called, and Carol can jump in if she needs to at any point, unanticipated ordinary expenses. As you know, I keep coming and saying, we've had another special ed child, we've had this or this, we've had to add this position, this place. Carol did find out on the contingency budget, we can transfer funds from our fund balance to cover unexpected expenses. On this page are all the ones currently this year to date that were due to a new student with some type of handicapping condition moving into our district, or a plan that came out after the budget was already done last year. So at this point, Carol is compiling it, we're putting it together, and we might need to do a transfer at some point, because these expenses won't be held against the contingency budget.
Are they at $150,000?
I didn't know we were doing monitor on the one bus.
We have to, because we have 2 students. One was 5 and had no means of communication, currently not signing, no language, and couldn't break. So because of the age.
You told us this before, but I need to have you refresh my memory on it. Why do we have so many of them coming into our area from other areas? And I know you've told me to come here.
We don't know, but I guess I've gone to other superintendent's meetings and they all say the same thing. These are the families that seem to just move frequently,
Okay, so this is an
unexpectedly
issue
pop
that
into
all
the
the schools are
districts.
dealing with.
It is, it just seems like, when you get hit with 3 in a week and a half, it's a hard thing to do this. And,
On average, I know this is not factual, but on average, how much does that cost us a year per student? Any idea?
on unexpected,
Yeah,
or
like if there's
special
here
ed student.
special ed student that comes into the district for, say, a year, comes in November, or whatever it starts.
If it's somebody we're keeping here, the cost is minimal. If it's somebody that we're sending out to a class over at BOCES, you're looking at anywhere from $30,000 to about $75,000 for each child, depending on what services. Would you say that's a fair estimate? Okay.
And for places like the Rome and stuff like that?
No, I wasn't even including that. I was talking about local
Right.
placements. When we're going to Rome, you're looking at $80,000, and that's not summer, and they have the option to do summer.
Plus with mileage and everything else.
Plus, yeah, that's not included in that.
Probably close to 100,000.
Oh, yes.
We heard this past weekend, a lot of the people that were at the board member training asking the same question, why are there so many people out there in our district? Well, it sounds like every district has it.
Well, sometimes if you don't have access to
New
it,
York State, they just kind of keep moving around.
yeah, we saw it formerly, same thing.
It seems to be the
Oh,
challenge that every district
that
faces.
didn't add anything.
You think it's only you?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's in the same boat,
Our student this year, somebody else's student next year.
Right. And like I said, frequently these are the families that move more often.
What is the PA for 5-year-old for medical reasons? Is that teacher's assistant?
Yes.
Goes
If
to
you want any
Rome?
more specific, you have to go into executive.
No, I'm just curious, I'm not asking anybody,
Okay.
but this person travels to Rome with a student?
No, that's
No, that's
totally
a
different.
different
That's one here in the building.
Okay.
The first two are Rome, and then each one after that is a separate situation.
Okay, I thought it was all the same.
No. Any other questions on this form? The St. Mary's, we came to a resolution, so to speak. It wasn't amicable, I guess, initially in the beginning. What we are now doing is we've added a second bus run. So rather than picking them up at 1:45, we pick them up at 2. When I spoke to one of the people higher up in the diocese, she felt that we were certainly trying to make some concessions for them to be helpful, and she said she would accept that. My understanding, and I'm not certain on this, but that the parents are still appealing to stay at, because they want their children there till 2:10.
So we got a second bus run.
But we had to anyway, because of when we had the other discussion and added time on to go student to be there longer in Ogdensburg, there was no way, I mean, when you're picking up in Ogdensburg and you're picking up in Canton, and one program in Canton gets out at 2:10, and the other one over here is getting out at 2:45. So we did the best adjustments, and we ended up, and that's an unexpected expense for special ed. So we did add a bus run. I know 2 of the 3 parents at least were thankful that we did look at it. I said if anything else changes again, we will let you know, but currently this is what our run will be.
Are we
So
dropping
they're-
them off to their houses?
No, mutual stop.
They're not missing education time, it's saying they made it done in 2.
Announcements are 2 to 2:10, and then they can head out the door. So they're not missing any education. They're not. When I had asked though to please give me their schedules, none of that information was given to me or forwarded. So, like I said, it was not a cooperative situation, which was unfortunate because we've never had any concerns like this before. But they also increased their time of day, this year, which played it a little differently too. I don't know if anybody's interested. I can run off Cuomo's message that was out today about tax and all that good stuff. It certainly wasn't favorable or positive to make you feel very good about a lot of things, though. If anybody wants it, I'll print it for you.
How long is it?
About a page and a half.
Oh,
It wasn't too bad. But,
Can you give us in a nutshell explanation?
Hold on, I have to find it again.
I'm sure it's favorable to some group.
Well, basically, what he said is, there are groups that benefit from different tax means that not everybody has, and everybody has different sizes of, taxes, and some people can collect from industry, and some can collect more locally. Other districts are dependent on what's there, and that we really need to share our services. We need to do whatever we can to save money. He still is on, combining administrative positions, whether it be at schools or colleges, or to cut costs and to look at doing as much as you can. He does say you don't have to follow the tax cap, which I thought was kind of interesting, because I'll like to see the first test case that doesn't. But really, there's ways around it, yes.
But if you try to go for it and it doesn't pass, then don't you lose it all? Right.
If we just say regular budget, right, we go down, regular.
It gets voted down, but then you're locked to add additional tax levy.
Okay, so you can go take a chance, but if you lose,
It is, and that, really it's not an option. But again, it's,
We had a really deep and fairly complicated discussion about tax caps versus tax levies, and tax, this is some tax acts, and
Well, that's the thing, you really, I think we have to educate ourselves, plus educate the
Yeah.
public, because it really isn't just flat 2%.
that's right, it's not a
There's
tax
things you have to
cap
add
per
and
se.
whatever.
Yes.
But I think really what we have to do is, why are we here?
Are you the expert in that? No?
No, I don't think actually anybody is.
Yeah,
If
it
you
is pretty
hear the
complicated.
towns and the counties, they're all planning on going above the 2%.
and that's what he was pushing to with the solutions of different communities, so. But I did ask Carol a couple weeks ago to, when we're getting another board meeting or two closer, to talk about what, the tax cap is, what does it mean, how is it really set up? So those are things we'll start on. But
Yeah, I think we should probably, whatever we can do to get information out of the public, because it's gonna be very confusing when it comes.
It's very confusing when you sit in front of the computer and read it. I mean, I've gone over that before, and you get to the end of it, you go, okay, what did I just read?
Well, we sat through a 2-hour session of it, it's like, okay.
Yeah, same thing.
basically, he said we have too many local governments and we provide too many services. I mean, it's-
Well, there's towns, there's townships right here in St. Lawrence County that's going, Potsdam
yeah.
is going, and that's gonna be really, there's gonna be an awful lot of expenses passed on to somebody else, one way or the other. So I'm not paying it, but you're gonna pay it.
But in some cases, it does work. I mean, Edwards has resolved their bills. And it happened to be that we did almost everything exactly together anyway. We shared almost everything. So it was a good move for us. And it didn't hurt anybody.
Well, the only thing is, you take a small town like Potsdam, and yes, three months out of the year, there's hardly anybody around. But when you put 20,000 students there and have no paid fire department, and no paid police department, and no zoning coordinators, you're gonna have issues.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary. That's all I have for